What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to FFL Review. I'm one of your hosts, John Scarmato, leader of the NWO Wolfpack. We got a big one for you today. We're going back to Night of Champions 3. What an event that was, am I right? Crazy event. We're going back to Night of Champions 3, and we're revisiting two epic fight teams. You saw them in Episode 1. You're going to see them in Episode 2. It's the Nation of Domination versus the Corporation, Max and AJ. And this one is for the light heavyweight title between Daniel Cormier of the Corporation and the last style bender Israel Adesanya of the Nation of Domination. Buckle up, it's going to be a good one. All right, we're back in the video room getting ready to watch this epic clash. Man, just thinking about it again after all these months has me super excited. This is one of the most classic fights in FFL history. So we're back. We're back to talk about the paths to victory for both fighters. And it's going to look a little bit similar to the last episode when we detailed Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg. A very similar kind of strategy on both sides. So let's get into it. So for Daniel Cormier and the Corporation, the paths to victory are a few different ways. The first one that comes to mind for me is combos and pressure. We know that Daniel doesn't have the best reach, but he does have an ability to get inside, to brawl a little bit, and he does have sneaky power when he's in close with those combinations. So we know that combos and pressure are going to be paramount to DC's path to victory. Of course, you can't mention Daniel Cormier without mentioning wrestling. One of the best tacticians in the entire FFL when it comes to the wrestling base. And you just simply have to use that wrestling base against a less skilled grappler in Israel Adesanya. Then we go from wrestling to the ground striking, of course. If you're talking about grappling, if you're talking about neutralizing that incredible kickboxing background of IZZY, you got to talk about the ground striking. It's paramount for DC to get the victory. And then working inside, the dirty boxing, the clinch work, anything to slow down IZZY and stop the momentum of him is going to be very important to win this fight. On the other side of the coin, Israel Adesanya has to be very simple and accurate with his strikes. He's known as an incredibly accurate striker, but again, because he has so many exotic strikes, it can be very easy to get a little bit out of hand and mismanage the stamina. So one of the paths to victory, keep it very simple and be very accurate with your strikes. Varying your strikes also very, very important, right? Making sure that you're not just punching into a guard. Daniel Cormier has a great guard. It's going to be hard to break through that if you're not varying your strikes and landing. And those two work together with counterpunching. AJ's so good at counterpunching, but especially with Israel Adesanya, it's very important that you make your strikes count and really capitalize on any of those misses from Daniel Cormier. And the reach, you can't mention this fight without mentioning the reach. Gotta work outside if you're IZZY. You gotta kick the legs. You gotta slow down Daniel Cormier. You cannot let him get your leg and go for that wrestling base. It's so important to keep the fight on the outside. So those are the paths to victory. Super excited to get into this one with you on FFL Review. So let's go. We are about to witness an instant classic in the league. Super exciting fight. One of the best fights we've seen, honestly. And this fight is a fight that had so many back and forth moments. It was a fight that, honestly, based on how the night was going for the Corporation, could have easily been another win for them. AJ doing so well in that fight right before this one. And that's something I just have to mention. These guys, We're on such a emotional high, both high and low, with that previous fight. Literally minutes before this fight, we saw Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg. AJ and the Nation of Domination throwing the kitchen sink at Amanda Nunes. Couldn't get it done. Just Amanda was so tough. And so going into this fight, you had to imagine AJ, of course, being locked in, understanding that he had Amanda badly hurt. But if you're DC and you're the corporation, you got to feel good about the fact that I just can't lose. I can't lose. So very, very exciting to get this one started. And this first round is very telling. We know that both these fight teams are so good of adjusting. And this really is the definition of adjusting throughout a fight for both fight camps. So I'm super excited to show you this one. So let's ready up and let's go. Up until this point, AJ didn't really have a lot of success with Israel Adesanya. Izzy is not the easiest fighter to master, and it was definitely a challenge for him. But this was the best Israel Adesanya we saw from the Nation of Domination, no doubt about it. And for Max and the corporation, getting DC back, such a great homecoming. They love DC there. And I just got to start by saying, you want to talk about starting the fight off with both fighters' skill sets. 4 seconds in, this piece of shit is refereeing this fight. Luckily, it didn't have anything to do with the outcome. But 4 seconds in, Israel throws the spinning back kick to the body, misses. Look at the step off by Daniel. Great footwork here. And Daniel's going to say, you know what? You're going to throw an exotic strike right out of the gate. You're going for a ride, friend. And of course, DC, too good with the wrestling, especially against Izzy. Beautiful sidestep right into the slam. And right away, we see the path to victory, the ground striking right away on Izzy. And at this point in the fight, I was feeling a little concerned for Izzy because anytime you get a situation where moments into the fight, you start getting taken down and you're not a great grappler, it's not the best feeling. It doesn't instill a lot of confidence in your ability to win the fight because that's going to be a strategy moving forward. If they can take you down and hold you there and you're not a great grappler, it's dangerous. So getting into this one, we've got DC and the corporation. Max knows he wants to be aggressive, and look, right away he's putting pressure on Izzy. He's getting right in Izzy's face. He's moving forward, and this is what he has to do. He's got to be dirty boxing. He's got to be doing a lot of combos in order to get any success against Izzy. But moving forward has its disadvantages. And when you're moving forward against Izzy and AJ, you better prepare for some counterpunching. And look what happens here. Daniel Cormier goes for a body dig with the jab, drops the guard. Izzy brings the right hook, flush on the chin. And you can see, not in the best situation. DC's head health, you can see it in the top corner here. The jab, the straight gets right through. And there's the first stun of this fight, just like that. Izzy goes for an exotic strike. Like I mentioned in the path to victory, it's very easy to fall in love with those exotic strikes, and we're going to see it throughout this first round. Izzy really falling in love with some big kicks, and it gets him in a little bit of trouble. Are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. So Izzy throws a jumping switch kick that misses after the stun. DC recovers so well. It's one of the most underrated parts about DC. He recovers so well. And DC decides to say, you know what? Two can play at that game, my friend. Jumping switch kick from Daniel. Look at the height. Look at the height. It's the NFL Combine or something. This is unbelievable. This is straight out of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. This is the Matrix right here. This is outrageous. And he connects flush on Izzy's chin. Look at this shot. Stuns the hell out of AJ. And to be honest, I would have never saw this coming. This was a perfectly timed exotic strike from Max and the Corporation and Daniel Cormier. Izzy is completely confused. He jumped above his head and kicked him in the face. Daniel just so good. That was a beautiful strike. And then going backwards, it's something you got to be careful of against Max. If you drop your guard going backwards, you're going to eat strikes because the boxing is so good, and that's exactly what happens. Loads up the right hand and the right hook as Izzy goes for the straight. Izzy's looking for a counter straight, but he's not fully recovered. Look at the head health. Not fully recovered yet. Look at the stamina. Half stamina, not recovered yet. And eats a big right hook. Oh my goodness. Close to sleeping him there. But I got to give it to Izzy. Really, really strong. Heart of a champion. Great body kick from DC there. And DC putting the pressure on. And again, this whole first round, eerily similar of how Chris Cyborg was against Amanda Nunes. Unrelenting pressure from DC, smothering pressure. And you get a sense that you're just trying to weather the storm if you're Izzy. AJ getting a little bit away from the strategy here. He's getting a little too aggressive and gets absolutely bludgeoned again by that right hand. And this is a cautionary tale here, right? Which is sometimes you might think you're recovered from a sequence, but the health, it's important to watch the health, right? Because the health of your block, the health of your stamina, the health of a body part may not be fully recovered as you re-engage. And if you re-engage too early, you get caught with a beautiful jab from Daniel Cormier. Look at Israel. He's against the cage. He wants to re-engage so bad. He wants to go on the offensive, but he's not recovered yet. Look at that. The guard is down. Izzy trying to be offensive. DC senses it. He goes right through with the straight. It lands right on the chin and drops Izzy here with a beautiful check hook. Hook was checked beautifully by Izzy, but he is reeling here, and he knows it. And again, head health not recovered yet. DC knows that Izzy wants to strike. But this is it right here. Guys, this is really the game. This is the game. The distance control by Daniel Cormier. Look at where Izzy is. Izzy has nowhere to go. And Izzy does not like fighting at this range. This is too close for Izzy. So Izzy's getting really, really, really claustrophobic in here. He can't throw his kicks. He can't fully extend his arms. And DC, this is the end of DC's range. So you're getting full power out of DC. And the overhand, for the second time, with only 2 minutes into this fight, lands flush and flattens Izzy. And at this point in the fight, I gotta tell you, I'm ringside. I'm watching this fight. And I'm shaking my head. I mute my mic. I'm shaking my head. I'm like, I can't believe that there's simply no path to victory at this point. DC has unloaded 2 massive overhand rights on Israel Adesanya. Izzy is not able to deal with the pressure of Daniel Cormier coming forward. And the grappling is only going to get worse as this fight goes on. It really did look like the Corporation, Max, and DC were on a different level. And the first round was just so Great for DC, another takedown, a masterclass really of his skill set, showing off the boxing, showing off the wrestling base, damaging the body from the ground. This had everything you wanted if you're a DC fan. A much needed counter off the ground from Izzy. Izzy not known for his grappling, but AJ needed this so bad. I can't even stress how important. I know it seems insignificant, but with 3 minutes to go in the first round, you have to show your opponent that you can counter and you can get up if you're on your back. And for AJ to do that, put a little bit of that in Max's mind, and he needed to get that respect. Goes to the well again. You got to respect him for going for this. Are you kidding me? Look how high DC could jump. Hang on. So we're saying that DC can jump over the cage. He can jump over the cage without any help, without springing off of it, without doing anything. This is the most athletic person I've ever seen. But DC knows better. He shouldn't have gone for this twice, but he does. Israel's ready for it. And now Izzy's starting to work the jab. Look at AJ. Just a few minutes into this first round, he's already starting to adjust his game plan. He's trying to work the jab. But again, this isn't the range you want to be in if you're Israel Adesanya. You don't want to be throwing knees with Daniel Cormier, because when you try and throw a knee, you're right there for him to grab the back of your head, and now the clinch is the worst place to be with DC. DC manhandling Izzy, gets the trip, and again the pressure, just moving Izzy. Izzy has to stay on his back feet, and Izzy is so desperately trying to control the center of the octagon. He's trying very hard. We're already seeing a little bit of the adjustments from AJ here. Simple calf kick, simple front kick, simple 1-2. This is when Izzy is at his best, staying on the outside and counter punching off of DC's aggression. And you got to commend AJ for adjusting so quickly in this fight. It didn't take a round, it took half a round. And Max goes back to the wrestling. DC goes back to the wrestling because he senses that Izzy is finding his range. So you got to respect DC for doing that. And Izzy gets right back up. So the respect is definitely being earned right now in the second half of this first round. Goes for it again. Now, this is what I got to commend the Nation of Domination for this. So AJ saw this first very early on in the fight, and it stunned him. He saw it again against the cage, and he blocked it. And this time, he was 100% ready for it. And this is what great fight teams do. They're ready for the adjustments that need to be made to win fights. And Max gets caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Man, does that look pretty. Look at that. Are you kidding me? Hand in the cookie jar. Beautiful high guard from Israel Adesanya. And he lands right in perfect range at the end of his strike. So he's going to go with a beautiful snap jab and a beautiful straight, a beautiful 1-2. It's got DC badly hurt. Front kick, trying to break the block, but DC's so tough, recovers so well. Front kick of his own, DC's so good. Just such a warrior. But now Izzy and AJ have earned the respect of Max. He's tasted the power. He can get stunned pretty easily. So you got to feel good if you're AJ, and you got to be cautious if you're the corporation. Unrelenting pressure from DC. The knees in the clinch. Spinning back fist from the corporation and DC. And you can see this is, I know sometimes we see these exotic strikes and they're more for show. But what the corporation, what DC is trying to do here is they're trying to reestablish the range they want to fight at, right? They don't want to be fighting this far away from IZZY. He will get absolutely bludgeoned from this far away. So what does Max do? What does the corporation do? What does DC do? They're going to close that range. Spinning back fist right on the temple. Ooh, that one definitely stunned. Got IZZY going backwards now. A defensive IZZY can be dangerous, but if you keep him on his heels, you can really neutralize some of that great power he has. The head's blinking from IZZY already. It's only round one. It's a dangerous place to be in, especially when you consider how strong and how tough DC is later in the fights. Both fighters normalizing their pace a little bit. I think they both understand that this is a chess game now. Beautiful, beautiful range control from Israel Adesanya there. The elbows flying at the end of this one. And I'm going to pause it here as the round ends, and I want you to take a look at this. Look at the stamina. Israel has been really, really taxed in that first round. And this is so dangerous for Israel Adesanya because DC has got such a great recovery rate and he's got such good stamina. And this is not Izzy's natural weight class. So this round, at the end of this round, as I was in the booth, I was definitely feeling like IZZY was going to need a lot to get this win, simply because of the fact that DC can weather a lot of punishment and he had the stamina advantage after the first round. So what we learned in this first round is that DC's got to continue to pressure. He's got to land punches and bunches, and he's got to use the wrestling, just like we said, those paths to victory. And if you're IZZY, no need to throw exotic strikes, no need to throw big misses. Simple counter punching, simple 1-2s, body front kicks, nothing crazy. And second round is a beautiful example of managing the strategy of a fight, learning from your opponent, gathering that data. And what happens in the first 8 seconds is just absolutely beautiful. A gorgeous display. DC knows he wants to be aggressive. He takes the center of the octagon immediately. He's going to weather a few shots from DC. He's going to start digging to the body. He's going to miss 2 shots. He misses 2 strikes. IZZY knows to back up and control the range. He wants to fight at range. Remember, we talked about that. So now with half his stamina bar gone, IZZY throws a beautiful snap jab, catches him right on the chin. The straight comes out. We talked about the 1-2, very simple 1-2 from IZZY. Is going to floor a simple 1-2, floors Daniel Cormier. And this is going to continue to be a theme in this fight because these simple but accurate strikes are the path to victory for Israel Adesanya. And DC knows now that if he's going to walk forward, he's got to protect himself, right? Because if you drop that guard for a second with IZZY, it could be lights out. And this is Daniel Cormier's best strike. The overhand right. So Max has a uncanny ability, just a sixth sense, if you will, for landing this strike and flying knees. Those 2 strikes are Max's absolute bread and butter. And he knows IZZY wants to go from this range. This is the range IZZY wants to go from. So what does he do? He's going to let him go. But instead of moving forward for him to get into range, he's going to take a step back. And so what that does, by taking this step back, he's not going to have to put his guard up. He's not going to have to block this strike because he's out of range. And he knows that AJ is going to want to move forward. with more combos to get at least a strike or two in, even if it's on the guard. So Max knows this. He knows what's coming after the 1. It's the 2. The 2 comes out, and as soon as he recoils, DC takes that beautiful step in once he knows he's not in range, and he's going to absolutely throw a gorgeous right hand. Stuns Izzy, and now DC back on the offensive. He can be aggressive, but he walks right into a snap jab from Izzy, and this is the simple, accurate counterpunching we talked about. DC thinks he has an opening. He wants to start pressuring him again, maybe go for a takedown. But Izzy's too fast backing up. The footwork is just so good. He's got the high guard up, but he's backing up so quickly. And look at DC. DC's throwing some big looping shots. Misses. He completely whiffs with the right hook. But he's not done. He's going to throw a looping left hook. And Izzy times this perfectly. Look at the range control here. Absolutely gorgeous from AJ. And he's just going to pop the jab out there. Beautiful. Beautiful from AJ. AJ, again, Izzy wants it too. So Izzy starts to get a little overzealous. But AJ's learned so much from round 1. He wants to stay at range. Look at the check kick. Now Max knows that AJ's adjusted to his strategy. He knows Izzy's adjusted to DC. He's sensing the range now. Goes for an exotic strike again. And this is what you got to be careful with if you're Izzy. Can't take a shot like this. Right in the cooter. Look at that move. Oh my goodness. Paths to victory. Simple and accurate. All this is Izzy waiting for DC to drop the guard. Izzy knows that DC is going to drop his guard here because this is the range that DC wants to fight in. He wants to get the grappling. He wants to get the body hooks going. So what happens? He pushes him away. DC drops the hands. Izzy going with just one straight. A 2 gets through. Simple single strike. It's a beautiful thing. Izzy with his own takedown. 2 can play at that game. I like this. I don't love it, but I like it. DC's so tough, man. He's so tough. He's got blood in the water. And you know, this is tough because you don't want to be trading with DC this close. This is not the range you want to be at. But AJ senses that he has him badly hurt. And he's right. Even though he gets hit with an absolute dump truck of a right hand, Izzy's going to clip him with the straight and the jab, and he's going to move in, and he knows that he can break the block. Uppercut. Hook. Hook. Izzy smelling blood. But again, perfectly timed. Too good. Max too good. I mean, it's perfectly timed. It's the right time to go for a takedown. And world-class grappling defense from Izzy, not known for it, but AJ doing such a great job, just like in the last fight. Every time you get an opportunity to do a reversal on the ground or block a transition, you are absolutely putting a seed of doubt in the mind of your opponent. And that's exactly what AJ did here to Max. You can see at this point, DC is feeling the pressure of Israel. He goes for a takedown, doesn't get it. Izzy staying at range. So the chessboard has been realigned at this point with 3 minutes left in the second. AJ is adjusted super well. And now it's Max's turn to figure out what to do. The jab is just so good for DC. And again, simple but effective and accurate strike. All it is a straight. There's nothing exotic about this. It's just a straight that floors DC. And at this point, the tides have definitely turned in the fight, right? Halfway through the second round, AJ is fighting with a ton of confidence. Izzy's fighting at range. The stamina difference has been completely he's won the stamina war. He's gotten his stamina back. It's even. And for DC, again, this is when it becomes a question of how do I adjust to this new strategy of this range? It's the wrestling. Max so good at getting the takedown and getting the ground and pound. And for DC, it doesn't take much. Oh my God, just an absolute masterclass of grappling. I thought it was over here. Once the crucifix happened, great technique by DC, by the way. And he starts raining down these shots, these elbow strikes. If you've never been in a fight, which I haven't, I can't imagine how horrific that feels. The posture up from the back saddle. I mean, Izzy's done, right? Surely he's done. Surely Izzy's done, right? Look at the health. Look at the health. He's got to be done, right? Nope. What a warrior. And DC, path to victory, it's the wrestling, right? He's just going to wear down DC here. I mean, Izzy, just going to keep wearing him down, make him feel his weight. DC, look at that. Izzy with such a well-timed defense there on the takedown. He was absolutely going for a ride. DC wanted to take him for a ride. Take a look right here. He's going to put his leg through and just hold on. And then rip the wrists. Turn around on DC. Beautiful. He needed that so bad with 1 minute and 20 seconds left. So now the chessboard is kind of back to neutral, right? You've seen AJ adjust and get back to range and get simple with his striking with Izzy. And then you've seen DC use the wrestling base and the ground and pound to start imposing his will. And so with 1 minute left in round number 2, it's anyone's game. And DC landing massive strikes to the body at this point. Izzy getting back up. That was probably the most impressive part of this fight, was Izzy's ability to get back up. Most people don't get off the ground, off their back when they're fighting DC, and Izzy did it for the majority of this fight. Oh, Jesus. We talk about the simple strikes. You don't need to do the jumping switch kicks, the question mark kicks. Izzy at his range. I can't stress this enough, guys. He's at his range. This is where Izzy is at his most dangerous. So what does Daniel realize he has to do is he's got to close that range somehow. And he can't close it with a jab and a straight from this. So DC is going to go for a little bit of this spinning back kick to the body or the head. But as he starts the animation, Izzy just closes so quick. He's so fast. And all it is a snap jab. And the 1-2 floors DC again. And that's the story of this fight. The 1-2 was so effective. Stack guard for Izzy. Absolutely beautiful display here. And DC just trying to hang on. Taking a lot of punishment. And he does, because he's so good with the grappling. I definitely thought DC stole AJ. This was a pretty dominant round for him with Israel, especially with that last knockdown. Round 1 was grim, but round 2 was such a great comeback for Izzy. But this is something that AJ does from time to time. It's something that the nation does from time to time. They go for broke a little bit. They won the stamina war in round 2, but swinging at air is going to be very detrimental and gassing himself quite a bit here at the end of round 2, especially against a workhorse like DC. You just can't do it. So what did we learn in round 2? Well, we learned that AJ can adjust with the best of them, and we know that Max can too. So this is just who can make the most adjustments in this fight to get that counter punch to win. And the Nation and Izzy did such a great job of just being simple and accurate in that second round, and DC knew that he had to adjust, and the wrestling works. And this is the round here where you had to think that DC was going to go and impose his will with the wrestling, and he does right off the bat. He goes for a slam, and you're thinking to yourself, man, this is going to be an absolute long round for Izzy. He's got his back against the cage. You think there's no way that he's going to be able to defend all these takedowns, and outside of that first slam, man, did he show up in that department. You know, you're thinking to yourself as this is happening, man, it's got to be demoralizing for DC, having him against the cage, having him within his range, and then all of a sudden, Izzy pops out the other side, and he's fighting at the exact range he wants to fight at. It's got to be demoralizing. And honestly, when I was ringside, I looked at the body language of DC at this moment in round 3, and I thought, man, he's kind of demoralized. What I didn't realize is that Max is just... it's a different level sometimes with Max, and what he's doing is he's just goading Izzy to throw a strike. And so Izzy getting comfortable. Look at the bouncing of Izzy, getting so comfortable. Look at this, the guard comes down a little bit, and what does DC do? Front kick. So well timed, right? Right off the jab from Izzy. So he's like, I'll gladly eat the jab, but you're eating a front kick. And the front kick stuns Izzy bad. And here comes the bull in a china shop. But this is a different DC. He's learned. This is why I love the FFL. This is why I love these two fight camps. In round number 2, when DC stunned Izzy, he went in like a bull in a china shop, right? Went for broke. You saw those wild right hooks and left hooks, and he got dropped with a 1-2. This time, DC stays on the outside. He stays composed. He's not worried about the finish. Absolute masterclass from Max there. Not to deter Izzy, though, right? I mean, this is AJ. This is the definition of the Nation of Domination. He's going to stay aggressive. He's going to look for his spots. He doesn't want to be manhandled around the octagon. He wants to be the aggressor. He wants to fight at range. The front kick is working, though, for DC. The front kick, getting through, and then the wrestling, right back to it. Side saddle. Gives him his back. And AJ gets back up. Man, that was so impressive. The grappling of Izzy in this fight was so impressive. It was really the reason that he had success in this fight. If he couldn't get up, it would have been the end. Front kick again. I can't stress. And we didn't see a lot of the front kick from DC earlier in the fight. We saw a lot of looping hooks and jabs. But Max knew that he had to close ground on Israel. And one of the ways you can do that is that front kick. Man, the front kick is so effective, and we saw it. I mean, he's landed 3 in the last minute, and this one again stuns Israel. Beautifully timed. Gorgeous. DC now smelling the blood. But he steps off a little bit, and I gotta tell you, This is again the chess game of these two. Just, you gotta love it, right? AJ just saw Max step off and back off when he was stunned. And what does Max do? What does the corporation do? They move right forward and they go for the friggin' absolute kill shot. Spinning back heel kick, just out of range from Izzy. And at this point, man, you got to be licking your lips if you're Israel Adesanya. Now, your head is blinking. You haven't fully recovered, but he is completely compromised in this position. And what does AJ do? What does Izzy do? The tried and true, simple, accurate 1-2. Jab straight, drops DC. And man, just when you thought Izzy was hurt, the response from the Nation of Domination. These two have such incredible heart. I love these two fight teams. I love this fight. This fight is so good. It's such a great back and forth. Is he feeling like he can move forward now? He feels like he can control the pace a little bit. DC a little bit weary. Look at the feint from Izzy. Feints the leg kick. DC lands a heavy leg kick. And again, when you look at this exchange, right? What has Izzy been throwing all night? Izzy's been throwing a 1-2 all night. So, if you're Max, you got to think, if you're DC, of course, a 1-2 is coming. And if a 1-2 comes, I can move in and I can be offensive. And I want to go on offense. So here's the jab. Here's the straight. Oh my goodness. Right? Because right before this, 1-2. Okay, I can go on the offense now. He's just throwing the 1-2. He's going to reset. He throws one more jab out there. There's no way he's got a 4-punch combo, does he? Yes, he does. Slips another straight through as DC thinks he's out of time. Blood in the water. DC feeling the pressure now. Feeling the heat of Izzy backing him into the corner. This is eerily similar to round 1 of the Cyborg and Nunez fight. Look at the patience of AJ just stalking with the jab. Very simple strikes. This was one of the paths to victory. Just simple and effective strikes. All this is a jab. It's just a jab. Staying composed, managing the stamina. Really a masterclass right now of not overextending yourself. Finally breaks it out. You could listen, when you have a guy like Israel Adesanya, you want to style a little bit, right? Well, you got DC on his heels. He's definitely feeling it, and he hasn't really dug the body much at all this whole fight. Well, guess what? Izzy's going to break out the spinning back kick, lands on the body. Still staying behind the 1-2. DC, again, Max notably slower, looking for the takedown. Working off the jab still. And at this point, all AJ has to do is just lean on DC. Just wait for the moments to strike. And what worked the entire fight continued to work. This was the story of the fight, the 1-2. Goes for the spinning back kick. Now Izzy's opening up completely on Daniel Cormier. Felt like we were moments away here. The whole arena thought, surely, we're moments away. Look at this little rope-a-dope from DC. Goats him in, goes for the takedown, and it's stuffed. And if you're DC in this moment, you're like, God damn. God, I have nothing left. I have to be able to get him down. It's my only chance. Half his stamina bar left. DC's so tough, man. Izzy is just peppering him at this point. He's landing almost every strike. The head's blinking the entire time. And right off of the jab. This is why DC's the best wrestler in the FFL. Right here. This is why Max is so good as a fight camp. He knows the jab is coming. He knows the straight is coming. It's the 1-2. We've seen it all the entire fight. Well, he's going to go with the jab and the straight, and DC ducks under. Beautiful duck under. He needed that so bad, and he gets the double underhook and takes him to the ground. Ground and pound. One of the paths to victory, right? But Izzy gets up, and it's the stamina difference, really, that allows Izzy to control the grappling. Without that, he's getting hammered on the ground with those ground strikes, and it's one of the most important pieces of DC's arsenal is the ability to throw those strikes from the ground. And at this point, although Izzy has been damaged throughout this fight badly by DC, the counter punching and the accuracy is just too much. They're both landing at the same time here. It's just the overall output from Izzy throughout this fight of landing strikes on the head that make the difference. The straight absolutely floors DC against the cage. Izzy's gonna pull the arm out against the cage. DC's got nothing left, and the fight ends. And Israel Adesanya at Night of Champions 3 secures his first title in the FFL as the light heavyweight champ at the time. A true masterclass, an instant classic between these two. One of my favorite fights of this year, honestly. Might be my favorite fight. And it was simply because of the fact that you have two guys who have a completely different style. Each of them know what they're going to do. They know they're not going to be doing anything super outside of that strategy. But the in-fight adjustments, the in-round adjustments from these two, it's on a different level. It really is. And it was an absolute joy to watch these two go to work. What a fight this was. What a fight this was in the FFL. DC being handed his first loss as a member of the corporation. Izzy having his biggest moment to date in the FFL. So kudos, hats off. Man, it pays to be simple and accurate sometimes, and Izzy proved that in this episode of FFL Review. Thanks for joining me. Looking forward to episode 3 coming at you in short order. Take care.
Fight forever. I'm with them. This is incredible.